Hey everybody, Rob Maurer here, and today we're going to be talking about some rumors on Tesla's battery supply for next year. Also got a couple updates on the Model Y and the Model X, a little bit more news on the EV tax credit, the Tesla recall, just a small one, and then a couple other things as well. Alright, so what a week. Finally coming to a close. Tesla today finishing up 3.4%, continuing the run to $1,114 per share. NASDAQ up 1/3% today. But just this week alone, Tesla was up 22%. And since earnings, Q3 earnings on October 20th, Tesla is up 29%. Obviously, both new all-time highs and new all-time high closes for Tesla today, and finishing really close to the high of the day in that last few minutes of trading. And then it looks like it's continuing to go after hours. So, I said it last week, I like seeing those strong Friday closes. We might be in for another exciting week next week as well. We'll see. Getting into the news, we don't have a whole lot today. I think probably the biggest story was from 36KR, which is reporting on a potential battery supply contract for Tesla with CATL. They say that they have learned from a number of people familiar with the matter that Tesla has booked 45 gigawatt hours of lithium iron phosphate batteries from CATL for 2022. They say that's mainly for the Model 3 and the Model Y. I don't know if that implies that the rest could be used potentially for energy storage. But obviously, this being lithium iron phosphate, this is what Tesla is using in the standard range versions of the vehicles. It's looking like Tesla is around 60 kilowatt hours for the pack size on those for now. Obviously, that could change next year, but if it stays around that size, that'd be enough for 750,000 vehicles. But again, that's contingent on some of that supply not also going over to Tesla Energy. Remember, we do have the new Tesla Energy Megafactory, which Tesla hopes to ramp up to 40 gigawatt hours of energy storage per year. Don't think we really know a timeline on that, but this year, Tesla should be over 5 gigawatt hours for energy storage, and it wouldn't surprise me next year if they can get that closer to 10 gigawatt hours. Another part of this report is that industry sources told 36KR that Giga Nevada should be able to produce more than 40 gigawatt hours next year. If all that production went to Model 3 and Model Y, that'd probably be around 500,000 vehicles. So between the two, that'd be about 1.25 million vehicles. But that would be before accounting for any 4680 production. Obviously, Tesla's got the pilot plans, and they do hope to ramp that up in Austin and hopefully Berlin next year. And my guess is that's probably not all the battery supply that Tesla is working on. Even this report says that they may expand that order with CATL. So overall, Tesla should be in a pretty good spot for battery supply for 2022 to continue to grow at 50% or more. If Tesla does about 900,000 vehicles this year, then right around 1.35 million would be that 50% bar for 2022. Next up, a little bit of news on Tesla in China. Jay in Shanghai today sharing a photo of a performance Model Y, which you can tell by the wheels and red brake calipers, which was apparently spotted at Giga Shanghai. So it looks like Tesla may be finally moving the Model Y Performance into production in Shanghai. The estimates in the China design studio have shifted a little bit over the course of this year, but most recently they've been updated to say that delivery for the Performance is expected in the fourth quarter, and that seems to be the case with this photo that we're seeing. Tough to say how big the volume on that will be, but the margins are certainly going to be quite nice for Tesla on that vehicle. Next, we've got a bit of an update on the Model X, so not really a ton of news on deliveries. It looks like the only deliveries that are commencing right now are long-range 6-seat versions. Still a lot of unknowns on the Plaid, so we'll continue to keep an eye out for that, but there's a little bit more information on the long-range coming out, so Tem Permanent finding this from some EPA documents, sharing it on Twitter, and it looks like we can now see the total battery weight for the new long-range Model X, and it's 537 kilograms, down from 625 kilograms from the previous Model X. So that's a 14% reduction in battery pack weight. Remember, the battery pack is about 4% smaller, is our understanding, about 100 kilowatt hours versus 104 previously. So that's part of it, but then Tesla is also getting an energy density improvement. So on the total pack size, it's about 186 watt hours per kilogram versus 165 watt hours per kilogram before. Next up is a new recall from Tesla. This is on a relatively small amount of vehicles. Only about 2,800 vehicles is the estimate. This is for 2020 to 2021 Model Y and 2019 to 2021 Model 3, but obviously only a small percentage of those vehicles, in which some fasteners for the front suspension lateral link may not be tight enough, which may cause them to further loosen and cause some issues. So obviously no over-the-air update on this one, but Tesla service will take care of these affected vehicles. Next up is some continued discussion on the EV tax credit, people having a chance to react to the framework that was presented that we discussed yesterday. And it's sounding like there is a little bit of pushback on the union portion of the EV tax credit from the Senate. So Wall Street Journal today reporting that, quote, Republicans are expected to ask the Senate parliamentarian to strip from Democrats' social spending and climate legislation a provision giving special tax incentives for the purchase of electric vehicles made with union labor, end quote. Senator John Cornyn of Texas kind of pointing out the obvious here, saying, quote, Maybe union-built vehicles are somehow more green than other electric vehicles. I doubt that. Or maybe it is a favor doled out to a favored interest group by our friends across the aisle. That seems like the more likely conclusion." End quote. Republican governors also pushing back on Wednesday, 11 of them writing to congressional leaders, saying, quote, "This legislation is not about supporting emerging technology, but is instead a punitive attempt to side with labor unions at the cost of both American workers and consumers." End quote. So I'm glad to see this seems to be getting some attention and some pushback. We'll see what happens with it. For the Senate parliamentarian to actually have any formal impact on this, it would have to first be passed, but I'm sure just bringing this up starts some conversations about likelihoods of being able to block that, and maybe some certain deals will be made, whatever. All we really know right now is that there is some pushback. I really wish there was a lot more attention on the plug-in hybrid side, but in a way this does actually impact that too, because this $4,500 credit, that is part of how the plug-in hybrid credit scales up so much. If the only change was that the union part got removed, that would actually limit the plug-in hybrid credit to just $4,500 instead. Not great, but so much better than it would be right now. U.S. Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm did defend that union portion of the credit today, basically suggesting that it is a way to narrow the wealth gap and raise the middle class, and that unions can help achieve that. I don't think many people have an issue with trying to do that. I think it's more about this just being a very ham-fisted and unfair way of trying to solve that problem. So I know we're talking quite a bit about this, but it is really important legislation, and it's going to shape the next decade. So we're just going to have to keep an eye on it for a couple more weeks, and then hopefully it'll resolve and we'll move forward. Clarifying point from yesterday, I mentioned how I wasn't necessarily sure on the effective dates, and there was one for 2022, one for 2023. After some conversation with some people today, it looks like the 2023 date is actually the effective start date for the point of sale credit. So basically all the changes that we talked about yesterday would apply for deliveries in 2022, but then in 2023 it would change from being a rebate at tax time to a point of sale credit. And again, either way it's refundable, so the only difference there is really around timing. As for the overall budget reconciliation and the framework that was presented, the pressure is definitely mounting. The New York Times reporting that President Biden telling a group of Democratic lawmakers yesterday that, quote, "I don't think it's hyperbole. The House and the Senate majorities and my presidency will be determined by what happens in the next week," end quote. All right, moving on, last couple of things here. First, from Toyota, they have announced an all-new battery electric vehicle, the BZ4X, which is, I guess, well, a name. This is sort of a mid-size SUV. We don't have the price yet, but we do have the launch date and some specs. So it's going to be launched worldwide in the middle of 2022, they say. There will be two versions, front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. Both will use a 71.4 kilowatt-hour battery. And they expect the range on the WLTP test cycle to be about 311 miles for the front-wheel drive and about 286 miles for the all-wheel drive. Again, that's WLTP, so take about 10% or so off of that for EPA. For acceleration, they expect 0 to 100 kilometers per hour or 0 to 62 miles per hour in about 8.4 seconds on the front-wheel drive and 7.7 seconds on the all-wheel drive. So it doesn't seem like the most competitive vehicle, but again, a lot of that is going to depend on price, which is not yet announced. So we'll keep an eye out for that. And then the last thing here, kind of a good way to wrap up a Friday, I suppose. You may have seen a few tweets from Elon talking about starting a Texas Institute of Technology and Science. Elon having some fun with acronyms there for sure, but I also wouldn't be too surprised if he's actually serious about this entire idea. I mean, look at Tesla's vehicle lineup. This does seem like something he would actually do. So we'll see. But that will wrap it up for today and for the week. Hope everyone had a great week and continues into the weekend. And of course, as always, thank you for listening. You can also make sure you're subscribed and signed up for notifications. You can find me on Twitter at Tesla Podcast. And I don't know if we'll do a beta video this weekend, maybe. But if not, I'll see you back on Monday, November 1st for the next episode of Tesla Daily. Thank you.